Because the thing about John Woo is that even though he likes gunfights, he doesn't know much about guns. Hi, I'm Kit, this is Vernon, and we just watched John Wick 3, Parabellum. So, Vernon, what did we just watch?
We just watched an excellent action movie starring Keanu Reeves.
Baseline first. What did you think of the first two movies?
First movie was a basic revenge movie. You get to see great, fantastic action sequences.
But also good storytelling, right?
Yeah, the storytelling is very, very lean, very efficient. You know exactly what you need to know and not a bit more.
Oh, but I thought like the character build-up was also good. Right?
Yeah, this is sort of how many bad things can happen to an ordinary Joe before it completely snaps?
No.
Yeah, that was the hook of the first John Wick movie to me. All that before it turns out, oh, he's actually got skills that you can't imagine.
Not just skills, but he also has respect, right? Like when the Russian father calls up the chop shop guy and tells him, oh, my son told me that you hit him. May I ask why? And then the chop shop owner tells him, well, he stole John Wick's car and killed his dog. And then this Russian mafia guy boss, he just goes, oh, and he puts down the phone. I mean, that was nice. That was a nice touch, right? So you've got all these little things that they put a lot of thought into the script, even though
technically it's almost a non-stop action movie, but it's those moments of those very short moments of dialogue that actually tell the story for you. I thought that was actually amazing for an action movie.
Yeah. But and of course the whole underworld of the Continental Hotel, the gold coins and stuff.
That was made a lot more in the second movie. Wick Chapter 2.
Yeah, but it did leave a very strong impression even in the first movie, and the fans liked it. So with the directors, after the first movie came out, the directors noticed the fan reaction, and they purposely played it up in the second movie.
Yeah. To be fair, the directors are fans of Hong Kong action movies from both the from the John Woo gun bullet ballet era, as well as the Shaw Brothers era. We've got all these arcane and rules and honor among thieves and assassins and codes of conduct, and they sort of found a way to merge these two in a mafia setting for the John Wick series, and it sort of took that inspiration and made it up front in the second movie.
In terms of fight choreography, I didn't see much John Woo in the first and second movies.
There's a lot of gunfighting, close range gunfighting.
But it's more realistic than John Woo. But
to be sure, there are no dust flying overhead whenever there's a gun battle.
And people don't jump through the air and then fire guns in both hands.
But the only fantastic thing in the gun battles in all three John Wick movies is guns in the John Wick universe have no recoil. Little to no recoil, but we'll forgive that. It's a part of the genre.
He noticed, I didn't know. But there is a kind of John Woo scene in the third movie when they point their pistols at each other and shoot, and both of them actually
ran out of bullets.
Yeah. That's very John Woo.
Extremely John Woo.
And it should not have happened, because some guns have a lock open after the last round is fired.
The cartridge drops out, right?
No, the slide is locked in the rearward position. Yeah, maybe these guns don't have that. Maybe.
But I thought the gun action in the second movie was a lot more realistic. In terms of in the second movie where Fat Morpheus, the
Fat Morpheus, he's just Morpheus.
Yeah, where Lawrence Fishburne's character who's old and fat and is some kind of crime beggar lord of hobo lord of New York, gives John Wick a gun with only 7 bullets, and the director construct this long action scene where John Wick has to constantly reload his gun or steal or take somebody's gun after he's run out of bullets.
And it's revealed in this third movie that
Fat
gun,
Morpheus is back.
that gun is actually a Kimber 1911, which is a nice detail. It's a real gun. And if you're a gun nut,
lots of actual gun names, real gun names, and calibers
so
spell out for you.
yeah. So in this third movie, John Wick is introduced to a new pistol, which is a 2011, which is a real gun. It's called a 2011 as opposed to a 1911, which is the classic Colt 45. It's called a 2011 because it has a double stack magazine, which means that there are 2 rows of bullets in the magazine, which gives it about double the capacity. So yeah, if you're a gun nut.
Which makes the gunfights more interesting because it feels like John Wick doesn't run out of ammo in that particular scene.
Because the thing about John Woo is that even though he likes gunfights, he doesn't know much about guns.
Yeah.
And it shows.
And he just knows how to get his characters to point the guns in the best angles possible through the camera, but that's it. The third one, I think, tries to develop the Shaw Brothers side of the universe a lot more in terms of how there's a shadowy high table whose rules must not be broken, and what happens when their rules are broken, especially by a man like John Wick.
That was already established in the second movie.
In
right?
the end of the second movie. But we do not know what exactly will happen and how the high table will deal with John Wick and what avenues there are for him to escape or fight back or beg for mercy.
Yeah, I thought the storytelling in the third movie was actually quite good because it was unexpected but still believable.
Right. At first, we see John Wick try to escape. Then we see John Woo try to beg for mercy.
John Woo?
Sorry. Oh boy. Yes, it's unexpected in the sense that this is the very first time we see John Wick try to escape and run for his life, that he tries to bargain for his life, he tries to blackmail former associates for help. It's
Guilt trip
or blackmail, whichever. And these are things that I never remembered John Wick doing in the first 2 movies. It's really new to me to see a really badass guy kind of reduced or somewhat reduced to doing all these desperate measures.
But it made sense because this time the entire criminal underworld is against him. So he really didn't have much choice. And I thought they handled it well. So he's not like this super man that can just take on everybody.
Even though he does take on everybody.
Yeah,
Come on.
Yeah. But he knows his limits. I mean, at first he sees, I can't fight all of them. I have to get out and find another way. Which was a bit of a surprise because, based on the trailers, I thought the whole movie would be set in New York and the whole thing would be just spent him fighting off hordes of assassins. And it didn't turn out exactly that way, which was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, so in the last, I think, 10 or 15 minutes of the second movie, we find a lot of random people in New York, like street buskers, security guards, all go after John Wick.
Yeah, so
everyone gets messages on their cell phones and decides, okay. And I thought the best part was how paranoid Keanu Reeves looked, because he could not figure out who the assassins were at the end.
That was stretching things a bit. I mean, there were just too many assassins around. So in the third movie also they do stretch the believability a bit. But you're already invested in the character, in the story, in the world, that, it's okay, you can let it go. The problem with the whole series is that the first one was already so good that it's kind of hard to top it, and if you equal it, you kind of feel like, okay, I've seen it before. So the second movie, like the beginning of the fight in the museum, it seemed a bit repetitive. Even in the third movie, the action is good. They had some nice new details.
But they kind of repeated the Hall of Mirrors.
With mirrors, yeah.
With more mirrors, it's like, oh no! That when your audience starts noticing that you're repeating certain action sequences.
Like, I mean, they even brought in Mark Dacascos, who I've admired for quite a while. Unfortunately, his career didn't seem to go anywhere.
And Mark Dacascos is known for
martial arts.
Martial arts.
His parents were actually martial arts instructors, so he's really good. The fight between Mark Dacascos and John Wick was like a bit of a letdown, considering Dacascos' background. I was expecting more, but it was okay.
Overall, I think the fight choreography is still okay. I don't think it got too stretched. Choreography could have been a little stretched, or it felt a little repetitive in the Hall of Mirrors. But other than that, I thought, well, they're still coming up with slightly new variations of what we have.
Yeah, like they had the paramilitary guys like wearing really good body armor. Their body armor was like impervious to pistols. So the first few times, John Wick has to get up close and he shoot them underneath the helmet. So yeah, you don't really see that in other movies. Halle Berry was okay.
You can tell she's not a trained martial artist, and that she didn't get as much training as the rest of the actors. So her style of combat in this movie is a lot more point and shoot rather than actual close combat.
The director said that Halle Berry actually trained the dogs, so that the dogs were actually following her instructions, because he didn't like it in other movies where you've got the actual dog trainers hiding behind a box somewhere, and you see the dog is not actually looking at the actor, they're actually looking at this hidden trainer. So they actually spent months, she actually spent a few months bringing up these dogs from when they were puppies and training them, so that they would really see her as their
Alpha.
master.
Yeah, so basically Halle Berry's combat style is point and shoot with a gun and order her dogs to chew off people
But
who are down.
But I think that was a bit of
a stretch, actually.
No, the dogs were great. I love the dogs.
Dogs are vicious, and the scenes they're in are great. Yeah.
No, but I mean the thing about having her train the dogs, I wouldn't have noticed the difference. I think it's because the directors are so into it that they're so perfectionist that they would go to such detail. There is something that I didn't really like about the hand-to-hand combat. You know, when you see this a lot. They get one guy like this in this kind of arm lock.
Yeah, John Wick usually does this to people who are attacking him,
and he
holds on. He holds on to their arms for ages and continues to beat them up, and they continue to punch him and whatever. And
the bad guys also do it to him. But in a real fight, this is game over, because this is an arm break. You can easily break the guy's arm already in this position. They also did have a bit of this cliche, well, with Mark Dacascos and his two Indonesian students, where they are in there for the thrill of the fight. So they want to fight John Wick.
Who they're actually John Wick fanboys.
Yeah. But it kind of doesn't make sense, because okay, if you're really a fanboy, you see that John Wick is injured and tired. If you take him on, it's not a fair fight, and especially if there are two of you, you know. So why would you like pretend to want to have a fair fight? There are like other nice details, like he did respect the two Indonesian students. He left them alone after defeating them, whereas he kind of disrespected Mark Dacascos in the end. Yeah, so I mean that's an interesting detail. Why did he treat them differently? Is it because he took it personally the way Dacascos went after him?
Or maybe did he let the disciples off because they actually yielded to him?
Talking about letting people off, it was a bit of a disappointment that they, in the third movie, we don't see the two main opponents in the second movie, Common and Ruby Rose, who were left alive but severely injured.
We assume they died from bleeding out from their wounds?
No.
Ruby, I think.
Ruby might have, because he pulled the knife out, but Common was very it was very realistic, because after
Common in the second movie again?
Common, they had the fight in the train, and
oh right, he left.
John Wick stabbed him and left the knife inside him.
No, he said the knife is in your aorta. If you pull it out, you will die immediately. Consider this a professional courtesy.
Yeah, which is actually quite realistic. If you do get a knife stuck into you, don't pull it out. You will bleed, even worse. Yeah, and you notice like Common didn't try to play the hero. He knew how on the edge he was, so he just kept very still. He didn't try to go after John Wick after he got stabbed. Yeah, that was nice. That was very realistic. So the same thing for Ruby Rose, but Ruby Rose, John Wick did pull the knife out, so maybe her injury wasn't as bad. But I mean, I really love those two characters. They were actually more interesting than Mark Dacascos.
Yeah, Mark Dacascos, I think his character was just basically a one-note character.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we all we know he's a great assassin. He might put up his I think John Wick's most formidable opponent in this series so far, and that he's a fanboy of John Wick, and that's all his character needs to go on actually. And I think although it's efficient character writing, it could rub some people the wrong way.
There was nothing new there.
Yeah.
Whereas like Ruby Rose, when she rushes to the museum to save her boss, she grabs her boss, and he's startled, and then she gives him this like really smug grin, as if to say, aren't you glad to see me? That was a nice touch. So you don't have anything similar with Mark Dacascos here. He wasn't given much to work with.
I think the characters that stood out in this movie were all stood out because of their relationship, in-universe relationship with John Wick. Either what he owed them or what they owed him.
Yeah, so like Halle Berry, even though she's forced to help him, but she never likes him, even right at the end. They never make up or anything. It was like strictly personal debt repaid. So that was a nice touch.
Ian McShane's character, as usual,
a bit too goody-goody.
And if you're genre savvy about Shaw Brothers kung fu movies from the 70s, you know that the nicest mentor is usually the one who backstabs you somewhere along the line.
Well, one of the interesting parts about the second movie was it revealed more of the high table, the Continental Hotel,
the conventions or the rules of the game,
the world. Well, one of the nice details in this movie is that we find out that John Wick really is Russian. I thought
I mean, in the first movie,
he speaks Russian, but I thought that was because he learned Russian because he worked with the Russian mob.
He worked for the Russian mob before he got out.
But it turns out he really is Russian.
Or Belarusian.
That's one of the things about the whole series. You do get like nice little touches like that. I would have liked a bit more. And you do see like a separate kind of world, a separate kind of loyalty between him and Angelica Houston, which was like a tribal or communal bond with their own rituals and traditions, separate from the high table.
But technically, Angelica Houston is part of the high table, answers to the high table, and is part of the underworld gang.
I think it's a good note for the franchise or the trilogy to end on, even though they do leave the opening there for future movies.
Sequels, as we'd like to call them.
But I hope they will take a break for a few years to really think through where they wanted to go.
Because it could get repetitive very soon.
I don't think they or the audience are ready for a fourth movie.
To be fair, I wasn't bored, even though the last bit at the end felt a little bit repetitive. I did not stare at my phone.
And he also watched only one John Wick movie, and he quickly tried to watch the second one last night. So he's not a real fan.
In general, I preferred Keanu Reeves when I was making Bill and Ted's.
So Keanu, if you're watching this, I'm your real fan. He's not.
But Keanu, I'm your real fan because you're making the sequel to Bill and Ted's. Another
nitpick is actually the lighting. It looks good. I mean, the movie looks gorgeous. It's very dark. So yeah,
it's meant to be watched in a cinema.
No, in terms of the scenes itself, it does make sense a lot of the time. But in Angelica Houston's place, in the training rooms when they were practicing ballet and wrestling, so those training rooms would be well lit, because
should have been well lit, because how the hell are you expecting your students to learn if they do not see themselves in halls of mirror?
Or how do you expect the trainer to see how the students are performing? So you do see that a lot in other movies, like in offices, or especially courtrooms. Courtrooms are brightly lit, but in a lot of movies, to make it look dramatic, they are very dark, they are in shadow. It's fake. It looks good, but it's fake. So John Wick 3 is not immune to this. So overall, it's definitely a worthy successor to the first two movies. It did have some new touches and details. It stayed true to the spirit and the plot of the first two movies, but it didn't exactly ring my bell, because it's very hard to like really top the first two movies.
I think that the second movie topped the first one very easily. It's really a question of it's really how good the second movie was that the third one can't top it. It can't, but I felt it equaled it in other ways. Not with the choreography, not with the world building, but with the character interactions, for example.
Yeah, the problem is that the first movie already raised the bar so high that if you just match it, you're just matching it. So the impact is not the same as when you watch the first movie for the first time.
I think the third movie is still better than the first. It's just not as good as the second.
I'm not sure the second was better than the first, but
really? Okay.
Yeah, tell us what you think.
It's a great ending to a trilogy. It's a great action movie that delivers more than just action. Otherwise, the trilogy would be superfluous.
And all for a measly budget of $55 million US.
Really cheap.
And that's all we got.
See you next week or the week after.
Bye.